I didn't see, you had a box down there, but there's a packet for it. Yeah, some stuff there. After that, four. That was four. Yeah, I can't imagine. No way. No way. So that's a big.
Pardon? No, she's on vacation, of course. She's beyond that, it's like, other people are trying to make it.
Hey, Kevin.
How you doing?
Good, how are you? You know what this is? What? You know what this
Here.
Picture. Yeah. Now. See what those are. Car.
Yeah. Gary, you're on the first surgery she did. Yeah.
That's fine.
Is that for now, these are marking with them? Good. I checked it. I just got, I don't know, we ever did that with the. We did. But I didn't check it.
Yeah, let's see.
She's got
Yeah. So.
I think she's on the 22. So I think. Alex.
Yeah, I don't expect it to be here. I mean, he hasn't come to the last 4 weeks, so. And he's out of town.
That's me.
And
It's Wednesday, September 18, 2024. It's 6:05 PM. I'm gonna call this meeting of the Georgetown Planning Commission to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Jake Cooper,
Here.
Kathy Hay, here, Alex Cordero, Kristen Dixon,
Here.
Bruce Shank,
Here.
Georgia Copeland, Chris Sanford,
Here. For the agenda for, what was it,
somebody.
September 18th? On the agenda, we have the special use permit for Lloyd Yanis and the Clear Creek Inn, and then a discussion of the comprehensive plan.
I don't have anything for the comments.
So then we just have the one agenda item. Do I have a motion? Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
With the exclusion of the cover.
Second. All there. Okay. Do we have any audience business? Okay, can I get a staff report on the?
Gary, do you have audience business?
Yeah, I'm Gary Haynes, owners of the Creek Gallery at 512 Street, 6th Street. Just want you to know I'm here to support Clear Creek Inn.
Likewise.
Anybody else?
Same here. We used to be residents at 708 7th Street. We also support the motion to give them that special use permit.
Second. Can we get a, there's a sheet?
like, it's down and, you know, she passed around a piece of paper
Please state your name, your address in town, or how you're connected to town, and oppose or support the?
Is this a public hearing? Yeah.
This is just audience, their audience is usually not on. That's all you know. So,
We're not, it's a public hearing, so we get
Yeah.
to get our views.
I think you guys say.
At the end. Yeah, and then the public hearing.
Can I get a staff report, or can we get a staff report on the clerk again?
Yes, so I passed around a supplemental staff report as well. I'll go over the original one first. So you're all familiar with the Clear Creek Inn. Lloyd Yancey here has been seeking to acquire a special use permit. We, as the board of selectmen, approved ordinance number. We approved an ordinance earlier this year for a tour event. You reviewed that or you recommended that ordinance to the board of selectmen earlier this year. That ordinance is included in here. It's 171643C, and that's exhibit C if you'd like to reference that. Mr. Yanis has been using temporary use permits to have outdoor events such as weddings for many years now. And so this special use would allow him to do that without having to come to the town for a temporary use permit every time that he wants to do that. And also other businesses that are applicable in town for the historic mixed use area, they wanted to do a similar thing. The proposed use is for specifically weddings and events. They want to add that as a use to their existing building, which has 4 uses already. This would be an additional 5th one. Their interior gathering space is 690 square feet, which qualifies as a small assembly space. And through conversations with the town and a recommendation by their architect, Tom Peterson.
Can I pause for a second? This is a public hearing, right? Has the public hearing been open? You know, like this is. It's just a formality,
Staff report first, right, and then public hearing open, or?
okay, because we have to make sure we put the times down.
It's staff report first.
With the outdoor space, the town asked them to limit that space to 49 additional people. I do clarify that in the supplemental report. That would allow them to have 98 total people outside. They would still be restricted to 49 people inside. Any violation of that would be a violation of fire code, but the exterior space doesn't have the same building code limitations as an interior space does. So they can have 98 total people outside, 49 people inside in their common space.
Total time. You can't add this together.
Would they be required to have a fire marshal on site to enforce that rule or anything? Okay.
Just like any building has occupancy limitations, their interior has a limitation of 49 in their common space. The exterior, we have asked them to not have more than 98 total people. They can't have more than 49 people inside at any time.
Right.
So, the restrooms, based on building code, they have appropriate restrooms to have up to 225 people. That far exceeds the actual capacity of the building, so they wouldn't need to worry about that if they're following fire code. Parking the facility, and I noticed a discrepancy here, so you can clarify. In Tom's report, you said 9 paved spaces, and your letter you say 8, so you can just clarify that if you like. Paved spaces, and then an additional 8 spaces available by valet parking. Mr. Yanis has made efforts to ask visitors to take advantage of Georgetown's walkability and overflow parking in other areas of town. Also shuttle services from the microtel for certain large events. And tries to be mindful of town events well, I'll go over this in a minute. There's also some proposed conditions that Mr. Yanis has listed that are conditions that have been imposed on him for temporary use permits. So these are consistent with the events that he's hosted in the past. The town has asked him to put these in place through the same conditions that have been used for temporary use permits, and now he's asking for these to be, because they've been approved every time for a temporary use permit, can you move forward with these conditions on a special use permit that's in perpetuity? So those limitations are sound check to limit approximate music distance to no more than 200 feet, so sound level meter, and he lists these out more specifically. I sort of simplified things, so you should read through this letter. A sound level meter maintained on site to limit volume to 70 decibels at 75 feet from the source. House, indoor and outdoor speakers controlled by multi-room amplified as approved for daily use, so he can use that in the day. And then hours of operation for outdoor lawn games, wedding, officiating, speeches, live music, amplified sound, is allowed only during the hours of 9 AM to 9 PM, and guests will transition from the backyard to indoors in 7th Street for outdoors by 8:30. He also listed, on his request, so we can read through that, that this special use permit stays with the property in perpetuity, which is something that I understood all special use permits, how that works, but he wanted to make sure that that was.
So if it changes hands and ownership, it's, okay.
Yeah, the special use permit stays with that. So, okay. Going over to the supplemental report. I did some more research into some parking minimums. The minimum off-street parking requirements listed in code for 1720-020C calls for an evaluation of parking minimums for any change of use, where the additional parking may be required for an enlargement or a change for the building. 1720-020E has listed the minimum parking spaces provided for certain uses. And I'll get to this a little bit later, but this is specific to buildings. So whether or not outdoor spaces are subject to the same parking restrictions are up to your interpretation. The Clear Creek Inn currently has 4 uses and is applying for a 5th use. Those uses are retail business, lodging units, indoor eating and drinking. They have a studio, a lamp-working studio. Rick and I feel that personal service outlet is the most applicable use for that category, and then an outdoor event venue. So the spaces that I calculate based on the square footages that I have, and some of those I did a little guesswork, so feel free to correct me if I've got any of those square footages wrong. Retail business, we calculate 1, that's just for the glass shop. Lodging units, 5 spaces for the individual rooms. Now, it calls for 1 space per 300 square feet of floor area of non-residential uses. Whether or not their spaces downstairs count towards the lodging unit, the indoor eating and drinking, does it overlap? I'm also leaving that up to your discretion, so I put 9 here, you could fit with us 5. Indoor eating and drinking, I calculated 2 for that, and then outdoor event venue. I note that you could apply the non-residential use category to this, which calls for 1 space for 300 gross square feet of floor area. Code does not specify parking for this particular special use, 1716-43C10. And it's at the discretion of the planning commission if they wish to impose parking requirements. Parking minimums are required for uses in buildings. So this use might be exempt because it is outdoor. Temporary use permits for events require a parking plan approved by the town administrator and subject to staff discretion. The parking plan proposed in the applicant's cover letter has been acceptable to the town for temporary use permits in the past. So that's the context for that category. Some uses, such as indoor eating and drinking, like I said before, are calculated using the same square footage. So their living room space, are we counting that twice for the lodging and for the indoor eating and drinking establishment? Are we counting it just once for one of those? I'll leave that up to your discretion. So, to account for this parking, depending on how you decide to calculate it, Parking locations may be provided on separate lots within 500 feet of the lot served if the properties are in unified ownership and control per 1720-020F. Exhibit A that I gave you with the supplemental packet is a map showing the Clear Creek Inn with a circle of 500-foot radius, so you can see the spaces that might be eligible for parking for use on this. Did I hand that to you, Lloyd?
I understand.
Control in this case, we believe would apply if there was a lease signed or some kind of agreement for, those spaces. So, that's not, public spaces are not eligible for this, it has to be a private lot. The applicants, also might have the option to pay a fee in lieu of having the required minimum off-street parking. The fee established by the Board of Selectmen is $5,000 per parking spot to be made in whole or in part to the town parking fund. This regulation is specified as eligible for the historic commercial district. The historic mixed-use district has rights to all of the uses that are established in the historic commercial district, subject to area and bulk regulations. However, the right to pay a fee in lieu of minimum off-street parking is also subject to interpretation. So, you know, that fee does say historic commercial. Whether or not you think that mixed use also has the right to that is up to the board. So, per the applicant's cover letter, the Clear Creek Inn has 8 off-street parking spaces and an additional 8 spaces available via valet, which is 16, which does meet the minimum parking required if you don't count the non-residential spaces for the lodging units, twice, so. The planning commission has the authority to interpret land use code and determine if this facility has appropriate facilities for this use. So that's the parking, okay. Moving on to amplified sound permit, one of the requests that Mr. Yanis has asked for is the ability to have amplified sound for events without having to come to the town for an amplified sound use permit, with proposed limitations to that. The amplified sound permits are required for any person to play or permit to be played by amplified sounds from any loudspeaker or sound amplifying equipment, or any bells, chimes, or the amplified reproduction of the sounds for any bells or chimes on any public streets, parks, ways, or places, or allow the same to be projected onto any public streets, parks, ways, or places within the town. This permit has been used in conjunction with temporary use permits in the past for wedding events. However, and this is again another, you can interpret this how you like. Whether this code is applicable to an event on private property is up to your interpretation. The category is called amplified sound permits in public. So, but obviously sound goes out into the public from private spaces. So, excessive noise may be unlawful if it is considered loud or unreasonable per 912.030. The applicant has proposed accommodations to limit the impact that noise from events may have on residential neighbors. 75 decibels, just for reference, can be compared to a vacuum cleaner. So that's how loud that is approximately.
Is this including amplified sound?
That's, he's proposing that 75 feet away from the speaker, there will be 75 decibels of sound
Okay.
limitation. Anything more than that, he would apply for an amplified sound permit.
Gotcha.
And that can be equated, that sound is approximately the level of the cleaner for reference.
And that is not complete, you're talking about.
Yes, that is true.
I'm talking about one of those old school.
One of the, the commission may consider one of the following options: exempts the Clear Creek Inn from amplified sound permits if events fall under specified noise standards, require amplified sound permits for every event, or perhaps a probationary period where you either require them to do amplified sound permits for a year and see how that goes, or exempt them from it for a year and reevaluate in a year or however long you feel is appropriate. So, and the last thing I wanted to clarify again is that the occupancy, the total approved occupancy, this is approved by the town administrator, for outside is 98. The inside is limited to 49. There may be an additional 49 people outside for a total of 98 people who are allowed outside the unit. So, okay, any questions on that? Any of that? Love stuff.
How late is the permit allow you to play any flex one?
Lloyd is requesting 9 AM to 9 PM, with the transition starting at 8:30. That's a condition, you get to set the conditions for this permit, so that's a condition he's proposing. And
Does the town have any codes on, quiet time, just as a neighbor or anything? Do we have any rules set in place for that?
No, I mean, there's nuisance codes that the town does adopt, you know, sound has to be turned off by 11 PM.
Okay.
So, you know, the applicant has been doing events for 9 years. And this is just to add to Kaja's report, and you did a great job, Kaja. I've been working with the applicant for 2.5 years. And so, the system that was established before me was established by the town administrator before me, Kent Brown, who allowed temporary use permits, in order for him to continue to do his events, which were temporary events for him, that were added to his, he has a normal uses of what he can do for his building. These were just as once in a while he was doing these events. As he's been doing his events, he realizes that this is something that he'd like to do regularly. And so in order to do regular events, things had to change because you're going from a bed and breakfast, which is a residential use, a special use and a residential to do commercial stuff, to the now a commercial use, which is a boutique hotel. Boutique hotels have many uses that they're allowed to do, restaurant, bars, event space inside. However, this category, which he's wanting to do, is different. Our code doesn't speak of. However, he brought it to the Board of Selectmen or to you guys, and then you added it as a category only for mixed use. And so that category is added. However, he's here now to say he would like to have that as a regular use for his property, is doing outdoor events. So I know we're looking at other things, but the context is he's trying to get an outdoor use, special use to do outdoor events. And so that's what is up to your decision tonight, is to look at this and seeing, what are you comfortable with? Do you have questions according to code? What is there things that you feel need to be looked at or question staff as we've looked at it? So we've been looking at this for 2.5 years. And now, you know, we have tailored his temporary use permits that seem to work for his events, which is why we stopped him at a certain time and things like that. So that was in order to accommodate the needs of the situations that he was in. I can say that he's been upstanding. He's always brought back the required permits, and some of the things that I've requested of him just over the years is, can you take a picture of your event with a decimal reading at certain times of your event to verify, so that there's accountability that he's keeping it with a decimal range. And so whatever we've asked the applicant, he's always accommodated with any request, or, you know, clarifying or adapting in order to try to bring peace to the community. So that's what I would say.
Have there ever been any issues with previous events?
Yes, there has been issues. There has been a neighbor that has complained every single event. And we have accommodated to address the issues. However, the other residents have actually supported the events. And I've got just as much, in fact, more letters of support than the single one. So yes, there has been some opposition to it. We have been many times in a room to discuss what we can do to make this better, and we've accommodated every single time. But yes, there has been issues in the past.
And they've been addressed though.
They have been addressed.
What are the complaints?
Complaints of excessive noise. So police have been called. Our police did show up on scene and they concluded there was no issue. There's never been a ticket issued. They have gone around the block to kind of verify to hear, is the sound excessive? And they have concluded every single time it was not excessive. So the town has responded appropriately. And I've also received calls from the police department to verify. I've also received, pictures with decibel readings so that I personally have gotten involved in it. So yes, it has been, noted and addressed.
So this is one person?
Yes.
Did they write a letter to us at all to,
Yes, there's a letter of opposition.
okay,
They had some concerns about the parking plan submitted and the parking requirements, the minimum parking requirements. I finished the staff report right before this meeting, so I'm presenting it here at this meeting for everybody. They feel that they did not have enough time to respond and are not submitting a public comment at this time, so.
Okay. Anything else?
Is there any questions I can clarify?
I don't have any, I'd like to open the public hearing and see what else that's okay.
You open up public hearing, and this is open public.
Did you call it the time?
Oh, that's right. 6:29.
If I can, hi, and thank you. I'm Lloyd. I know most of you, and you know my son as well. We run a family business here in town. We moved to Georgetown 9 years ago. We actually opened it after construction in 2019. We came here with the intention of building a beautiful and productive Clear Creek Inn. It's right in the heart of Georgetown. We love it. We hope the town loved it. But what some of you might not know is that Sam brought his hospitality degree with him. And I brought 40 years of trade show management with me. Trade shows are special events that exist for the purpose of creating commerce. Events and hotels are economic impact engines. And by economic impact, I'm not talking about the money that we make. And sure, we're in business to make a profit. We want to. We've chosen Georgetown, a pretty reasonable place to live, as a place to settle and spend that profit. We buy local, we hire local employees, we collect plenty of tax revenue for the town, for the state. When events deliver economic impact, though, to any town, and especially to small towns, it's because events and hotels bring in new customers. And those customers spend their money here. They shop in the stores, they eat in the restaurants. They fill every hotel room, weddings, and every Airbnb that they can find. The visitors are the lifeblood of this town, economically. They're lifeblood, and at Clear Creek Inn, we've made it our mission. Our mission to bring in new visitors and to give them a first-class experience. Even though we feature just 4 hotel rooms in the whole facility, from our very small beginnings as a bed and breakfast today, we've been bringing Georgetown, those visitors at the weddings, in dozens and hundreds. Through the weddings, through the events. We apply for temporary use permits for those events, and we apply for amplified sound permits when necessary. Through that process, we've worked out with town administration to streamline our one event at a time process. With staff, we focused on minutia. We've been focused on the minutia of the decibel levels, the distances from neighbors, for the band, how the hours of operation, parking, traffic, every possible reasonable accommodation to run events in a small town that demands respect for the neighborhood and for this historic charm that brings our guests here. So anyway, after 30 some odd events of all sorts of sizes, we think that the process has been streamlined by the administration to the point that we know how to do that. We know how to meet that criteria and we know how to do it well. So today, what we're not asking for is a carte blanche, let them do whatever they want. We're asking for a situation where a special use permit will allow us to streamline this process further and allow us to run these events when, and only when, we are at or below the conditions that have been approved already many times. So those minimum conditions arrived at through our previous events are the basis for the conditions under which we requested a special permit, special use permit. And if approved, then if we ever want the town to consider allowing us to run a different event that falls outside of the normal criteria, we would need to go through the process that we've already established, temporary use, amplified sound, any of those things, one-time process. So this is not about special circumstances, it's about same old, basically. Before I finish up, there's a few things I want to point out about finishing, because this is a big deal to us. And I want to make sure to cross the Ts and I want to make sure I cross the Is, dot the Is. Small point, but today's memo has 75 decibels, which is what we asked for. And there's a typo that says 70 decibels. We're looking for 75. It's the number we've been using. It's a number that works fine. It's also the number that equals the sound, the decibel level at the creek about this time of year. The creek is much louder than that most of the summer, most of the time we have our winters. I also saw that the staff report consolidated the proposed conditions that you find on my application, leaving off the three most obvious, the three that probably staff didn't feel needed to be talked about, but that approval would eliminate the need for a temporary use permit under pre-approved conditions. That the approval would eliminate the need for amplified sound permits when meeting those conditions. And finally, as with standard practice, the special permit to run with the property. Finally, with regard to today's staff report on parking, I haven't really read through it yet either. So maybe I can comment on it later, but what I can say is we've worked very closely with every town administrator to develop an approved plan for traffic and parking that takes care of all of our guest needs and minimizes the impact on the downtown. I won't get into all the details, they're in my memo, but basically we tell everybody that's coming to a wedding, bringing a wedding here, and it's a very controlled population, to tell their people to walk. It's a walkable town. Even the Microtel's only a mile from our place. So we limit parking. We don't run events when big events are going in town. We don't want to overload things. And we wait until late in the afternoon when anybody that sells on retail here on 7th Street, 6th Street would know the parking disappears in the lot that we use. We have an arrangement with our neighbor to overflow parking, and of course, overflow parking throughout this whole area is greatly used, but we really encourage no parking. I have one final request. When the public has to comment, if there is any opposition, any accusations about how we run our business or the things we've heard before, I'd just like the opportunity to respond afterwards, if that's okay with this situation.
I have one question for you. Why are you starting in the day the amplified sound? Not that you're doing this every day, but I mean, under these circumstances, as early as 9 AM in the morning.
On those days, we start setting up early in the day, usually 10, 11 AM. Yeah, we just want to make sure we're covered for a sound.
This is, okay, so it's not actually the
No.
amplified sound,
No.
it's just.
The band doesn't start at 9.
Yeah.
That's what I was curious about.
But we do sound checks as early as we can. We're working, it's very diligent to make sure that our act is minimal.
Hi, my name is Paul Vogt. I live at 901 Rose Street. I live near 2 blocks from Hoopi Inn for the time it's been here. I just lost my numbers, but I want to point out that the average daily spend for a day visitor in town in the state of Colorado is $88 per day. A business traveler is $128 per day. And an overnight stay is $228 per day approximately. Lloyd's always been a great neighbor to us. I live with street parking 2 blocks from the event, the event center. I have never had my parking impacted. I park on the street. I've never seen street parking filled. We have a large town and we operate like, and I used to be in the urbanism. We operate in the same sort of situation. We try to encourage people to park on the streets here and take advantage of what we have, but I've never been impacted by it. My windows are open during the season, as you know, Kathy, as much as we can. I have never heard a single sound from it. 75 decibels is what we try to do with music programs that I put on outside at 75 feet. Ours bounce off the buildings a little more, but we're very careful about that, and you can hear it more than you can in Lloyd's situation. Room nights are incredibly important to the business in this town, and I have personally in my business experience met with many people who have attended their events or are coming to their events and they're staying in different places within town. It's important that we fill those spaces so that we can enjoy full restaurants, full music venue, all the venues around town, including one of the businesses that I happen to operate. Lloyd's always been on board with providing discounts to room nights, providing collaboration to make sure that we can fill our spaces. The idea that I've always seen from Clear Creek Inn is to make sure that we're operating as a community to better the community, not just to make one site valuable. And I feel that 100 people outside means that we have Rose Street Bed and Breakfast. We have the Microtel, closer to, we have the Georgetown Mountain Inn and the new lodge filled. And that means all the restaurants, all the businesses. I have potential to rent out and do other events on the side of it. And I think that that's important. But as a neighbor, as a 2 block away neighbor for longer than he's been in the place, I have never been negatively impacted. I've been to meetings when he started it, and he's followed every single hoop that he was asked to jump through. At the first meeting with the select, he was starting this business, and he's gone above and beyond, and I'm just really happy to have him as a neighbor. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for your volunteer time and for your staff time, because I appreciate all that you do. I'm going to leave so that you can take care of your job and do it without somebody staring at you. And I sincerely appreciate your time. And
Before we continue with the public testimony, did any of the board members have any questions for Mr. Gass? No. We can continue with public testimony. Anybody else have anything?
I live directly behind the inn and I've never been disturbed.
What was your name and address?
Michelle Schilling, I live at, is it? Just freaking out right now. Behind the inn, what is it, 713?
Are you sure it's not 613?
613. Yes.
Are you sure you live here?
I do. Don't I? Yes, but I've never been negatively impacted. They're very communicative and it's never been a problem. And I honestly am befuddled that we're wasting our time on this.
Anybody else?
Tom Peterson, 1414 Main Street, the far enough away that that's never been an impact for me either, but I've known Lloyd since he's been in town too. I'm an architect here in town and worked with him on the building that's there. And I just, through all my dealings with Lloyd, just reiterate what everybody's saying, he's committed to doing things for the town, doing things well, and trying to, do everything above the board. So his business has grown over the years, and I think it's fantastic that, it seems like a really unique event thing and Georgetown's a great place to have events like that and just impeccable taste and outdoor event over at the building. All that kudos to Lloyd on all that stuff. From even the exterior design of the building, he came with ideas and we made that. So the building is a beautiful building there in town, and the inside is just impeccable as well. And I think everybody that, draws a great crowd to the town, and I think everybody appreciates everything he does. And yeah, just to reiterate that he's always he wants to do things right and do things well and not impose on the neighbors and so I'm in full support as well of the special use permit.
Hi, Rich Davis, 404 Second Street. I moved here to town just about the same time the inn was opening, so kind of got to see it grow and become part of the town. I've attended events there, I've helped out, assisted working events there. That time I've seen Lloyd and Sam be nothing but accommodating hosts and also accommodating to the rules and regulations of the town. I've watched them work to adapt as their situations change, as people's opinions have changed, and they've been nothing but accommodating. Even on a personal note, we're planning to host an event there in a couple weeks in conjunction with Celebration of Life for my brother, who's a community member. And Sam's just been very open, kind of to a point that was made. We have people staying all over town. Sam's been very clear that it's gonna work out best for everyone, for parking to be a minimal and walk within town. So I think that's just another example of him communicating with guests, communicating with events, and staying within the regulations that were set. That's it.
I'll add one more. I'm Courtney Johnson. I used to be a resident over at 708 7th Street, direct neighbor to the Clear Creek Inn, right across the creek. Lionel Johnson, we were residents there 2016 to 21. I currently live at 1101 Biddle Street, but we're neighbors, they're still friends, and they're definitely an asset in this community. I'll just make one very clear creek point that we were right across, direct neighbors. We never heard a thing over the volume of the creek. And there was no other problems up there. Thank you. No.
I'm Monica Cortez. I live at 514 6th Street. And I moved here maybe just a little bit after they started Clear Creek Inn. And every summer, I hate the heat, so I sleep with my window open like almost every single night, except for when it rains. But the noise, nothing has ever bothered me. And as personable as they are, I feel that if it did and I brought it to their attention, they would address it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I did receive a public comment. I don't know their address and I asked them, but they have not responded. So Carrie Ann and Jeff McHugh wanted me to read the following complaints into the public record. One, the following items are not explicit in a special use permit application packet. And I wanted to clarify, these are their complaints, not verified facts. These are things that they're concerned about. So the following items are not explicit in the special use permit application packet: the location and number of parking spaces, the direction of traffic flows and locations of entries and exits of parking lots and relationships of parking lots to entrances and exits of the building, the location and type of exterior outdoor lighting. The application may therefore be considered incomplete and should not be accepted. Number two, pollution of the creek from lack of control over guests during events. Number three, excessive noise, traffic.
Sorry, hold on a second, did you say that too?
Pollution of the creek from lack of control of guests during events. Trash, furniture.
Isn't your back area fenced in?
Not on the creek.
There's
There's a
fence
gate,
on-
there's a,
There's a metal fence on the creek.
yeah.
Yes, sir. I also go and maintain the creek regularly.
I believe we agreed to let Lloyd respond to these,
Sorry.
so at the end. Excessive noise traveling down the creek to residential homes, violation of occupancy limitations, hot tub not being screened from public right of way, inequitable policy enforcement and inequitable awarding of permits. And for this, for Carrie Ann and Jeff, they feel they did not receive the entire packet. And the number of required parking spots for existing uses is not adequate.
My question for the lights, we have a dark skies ordinance, correct?
Yes,
And there's been nothing with that, right?
Not that I'm aware of. I've never had an issue come. We don't not necessarily have a policy where we go check everyone's home. But when new construction, specifically, we make sure that you know, lighting is pointing downward and it has to be inside the fixture so that you can see the bulb. However, we don't go back and try to force, you know, pre-existing of the code, those who have, you know, violations, we don't go into those.
Yes, because I sleep with my window open all summer long. And I like it pitch dark, I like the dark. Mr. Yanis did have lights out and I addressed it and the lights do turn out at a reasonable time to where I can still sleep with my window open.
What time do those lights turn on?
Yeah.
It's
That was a few
way,
years
it's
ago.
been, yeah, it's
Sometimes
not a
it's just
timer,
like,
I think.
it goes off.
I would say like, no later, like than midnight, 10, 11, I don't know, between then.
The timer actually, has hours after, it turns on at dusk, it's automatic, and it has hours after dusk as a setting. I think we're at 2 or 3 after dusk. Okay. Rather than a time.
A reasonable.
But we're talking about event lighting, not backyard lighting, correct?
Well, and the complaint wasn't
You're
about
speaking of
specific.
his backyard lights, his event lights are off well before that time.
Yes.
So I just
Well,
want
just
to.
even light pollution in general is what I'm saying, like.
Yeah, it's funny, I was thinking the same thing.
When I did have a problem, I just wanted to bring it to attention that when I did have a problem with the light pollution bothering me, I addressed it and they took care of it.
And then the other one I wanted to bring up was the hot tub, because I didn't know hot tubs are supposed to be out of view. Is that are you aware of that?
We've got a picket fence that's higher than the hot tub, I don't really know what that's about.
So somebody's got to actively try to look through it.
Yeah, the hot tub is elevated, it's on the second floor,
It's on the second floor.
and there's a fence around.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so you'd have to, I don't know what angle you could possibly.
I live directly behind it and I don't see anything.
Okay.
So unless you've got a drone, you might mind your own business.
Do you have anything to say?
I don't wanna get into the false accusations and the lifetime's worth of complaints that I've dealt with, but, I just don't wanna get into it. We have addressed every single one of them. We have no citations. We do the very best we can. We would love to sit down with our neighbors and hear what they need.
Yeah.
We're trying to be good citizens here.
Tom Peterson again, and just in reference to occupancy limitation. That's all governed by building code.
The interior.
Yeah, and so, and I guess, yeah, and then the exterior side is what's being discussed here for this permit, but. And yeah, then that's, so the occupancy limitations or whatever is governed by building code for the building, so that's all compliant has been. You don't receive a building permit without meeting occupancy requirements.
And I'll just add to, Mr. Peterson, this is something we did not take lightly. We spent a long time, many discussions to discuss this scenario and, they asked for, I'll say 1,000.
Wouldn't quite.
And I'm just exaggerating. They asked for their maximum that they could based on the space, based on the bathrooms that they have. But we came back and discussed it and felt like, let's try to get down to more reasonable and neighborliness and accommodations. And that's where we felt comfortable bringing it down to 98. And he was willing to accommodate that. So he could have asked more and challenged us, but we felt that it was, you know, let's just try to create a compromise like we have on all the temporary use permits. How do we create a compromise to get to that number? And that, because it's outside. And so that's where we felt comfortable. Our staff reviewed it, Safe Built reviewed it, fire department reviewed it. They gave suggestions, but ultimately it's between the staff of what the town administrator determines the occupancy for that. And I felt comfortable at a 98. That's a total. That's not asking others inside. That's a total 98. However, when he does transition at the 8:30 time, only 49 would be able to go inside. So, and he agreed to that. That was a condition that we asked and we came to a compromise and that's how we got there.
I have a question. Mr. Yaz is asking that whatever we decide tonight, go with the property, if he sells the property to somebody else. Does that mean that the conditions of these changes go with that as well?
Correct.
So that somebody can't come in and say, well, in a normal such and such a use, I'd be able to do more.
No.
So it's the conditions that go with
Yes,
it.
and until they come back to this board with a change, until it gets amended,
Sure.
if not, it stays the same.
Okay.
Do we have anybody else in for the public hearing or testimony?
I see that there's a chat bubble. There's just a little red notice on the chat bubble, so I thought we might want to check that.
Alex Cordial, hey, he's here. Hello, I heard the entirety of the meeting, but you guys can't see her.
Do you know how to promote him to a panelist? I can do that.
No, I don't. Poor Alex.
Alex, you're on here twice. Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yay. Yeah, we can.
Oh.
We can't see you though, so I don't know where your video is, so we can hear you.
Okay, well, I've heard the whole meeting. Here's the video now. Hello.
Hello.
Alex, do you have any questions for the town staff or Mr. Yanis?
No, I don't. Everything has made sense.
It's 6:54. I'm gonna end public testimony. And then. Y'all have anything else to say about this?
Don't have any questions.
I don't even. Y'all have any amendments to make or? Do I have a motion to approve the special or the land use application?
So moved.
Sorry, special use permit.
Do you want to put conditions in there?
I don't.
You want to approve with no conditions?
Well, just with the conditions proposed in the application.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one was Kathy. Good second?
Yes.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Oh, sorry. Yes. I move to approve the special use permit application for 610 7th Street to allow for outdoor events with the conditions proposed in the application and as discussed during the meeting.
What conditions were discussed during the meeting?
Yeah, there were.
No amplified sound. Under the conditions, what was the things that you would add?
I think all of the conditions that were, read that back, it says in the application.
In the application.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So maybe, do you want to review those before you vote on it?
I don't think we got outside of that. I think we just had discussions about it.
So there was the sound check to limit approximate music distance to no more than 200 feet, sound level meter maintained on the site to limit volume to 75 decibels at 75 feet from the source.
75 and 75.
75, because it said 70, but I recall you saying
Right.
it was 75.
So your motion is not what's on that
Yeah,
page,
do
but
you
what's
wanna
on my
look
application.
at the
It's 75, 75.
Yeah.
House and indoor speakers controlled by multi-room amplified is approved for daily use as needed. Hours of operations for outdoor lawn games, wedding officiant speeches, live music and amplified sound will be allowed only during the hours of 9 AM to 9 PM. Guests will transition from the backyard to indoors on the 7th Street front porch by 8:30 PM. Deviations from these conditions will require additional permitting.
So those are the ones, that's what he asked for. I simplified them a little bit, so
This is what,
that's what Lloyd is asking for.
The three conditions I had mentioned earlier, temporary use permit unnecessary under these conditions, amplified sound unnecessary under these conditions, and, goes along with the property.
Yeah. And I have no issue with any of those.
So we'll include these, so if we were to make the motion of the,
And include
this is what we're including.
That's what you're agreeing
Okay.
to, yes.
Okay.
So-
Is there something on there that we have discussed about, sorry, does this exempt from, a sound, a temporary use permit for, sound?
He is asking for an exemption from amplified sound permits with those conditions.
As long as it meets that, if he comes with a different event that exceeds any of those things, he has to go with a temporary use permit.
Or an amplified sound permit.
With an amplified sound or with a public hearing, correct?
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the special use permit with the proposed conditions?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I just want to say that I was under the impression that they were still within the application. So if I need to add that to it, we can do the motion to approve the special use permit for 610 7th Street to allow for outdoor events with conditions proposed in the application and including the 3 items. I can't see it from here, but.
His 3 items are included in his application, they just weren't included in my staff report.
Oh,
So,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So all-
So it's there, that's it.
Incorporated
Yep.
with that and the other.
Yeah, okay. I got it.
Second.
Yeah, second.
All in favor?
I.
Motion passes.
I motion to approve business outside of my week.
Thank you all. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. I think I wrote down some notes, but I think I was.
Oh, approve the minutes. For May.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for May 15th, 2024? Yes.
May, yeah, all of our meetings either been canceled or not having quorum to review the minutes today, so.
I didn't.
There's another minutes in here.
It should be in the back of the packet.
I did not.
I think I lost it.
No?
I got it.
Yeah, my only concern with that whole thing was parking, but it seems like they haven't ever noticed any impact from any events going on over there, so.
Well, Bruce is reading through that, I apologize for the last minute report and, the not having the clean and safe environment report done.
It's okay. No worries. The average,
No, those are your improvements.
all, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I need to sign this. Where's Rick?
I'm not sure. There's nothing for you to sign over, that's the application. But there should be some kind of written permit to go in this file with the conditions listed, maybe, and maybe that's the whole packet. I don't think you need to sign it, but I'll double check. Sure.
I have a motion to adjourn the meeting for planning commission for September 18th, 2024. Give me somebody to make a motion.
Or that.
All in favor, or second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, Alex, I didn't get to you till the end of the meeting.
That's okay. I listened to the whole thing, so it's all right.
Are you at home?
Yeah, I'm visiting my parents right now.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on Zoom.
I think.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for asking the questions.
I don't